Excellent. Welcome, everybody. My name's Tanya Pearson. I'm the principal of the elementary school. I hope most of you have seen me, and if not, we'll look forward to seeing people as we return to school or at the point when you do return if you choose to wait until a later date. So, bienvenidos a todos. Me llamo Tanya Pearson. Soy la directora de la elementaria y espero que te he conocido y si no, voy a conocerte muy pronto, hasta cuando regresan en noviembre, 2 de noviembre o más tarde si prefieren. So I'm going to introduce as well our interpreters, and then I'll go into a few other introductions. Voy a introducir las personas que van a hacer traducción durante nuestra junta. Se llaman Isidra y Julie. Entonces ella va a decir cómo se puede hacer un clic para escuchar la presentación en español. Gracias. Thank you, Isidra.
Hola, buenas tardes. Estamos ofreciendo interpretación en español en vivo durante esta reunión. Si desea escuchar la interpretación en español, haga clic en el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior derecha de la pantalla Zoom. Verá un icono de un globo terráqueo y hágale clic ahí. Si se está uniendo a nosotros a través de la aplicación Zoom para teléfono inteligente o smartphone, seleccione su idioma haciendo clic en More o Más en los 3 puntos en la esquina inferior derecha de la pantalla. Seleccione Language Interpretation. Luego elija Spanish y hágale clic y diga Done, listo, y así puede escuchar la interpretación en español. Gracias.
Thank you very much. So welcome again. I'm watching in webinar view, so I cannot see our audience right now, but I do know that we have fantastic support. I've never felt more like a team than I do this year, even though we're disjointed in various towns, dealing with many different challenges so far. We are working so hard as a team of teachers, students, parents, community members, and support from the district as well. As panelists, we have some of our classroom teachers joining. We have district officials, Dr. Mary Lou Wilson, Mr. Chris Heller, Mary Allen, and others, maybe perhaps Andy Stubbs as well. At any point, if there is a question or a need that someone has, I know Angela Baxter may also be joining for food services, and I welcome anybody to join and to participate or add or edit a comment that I may make. But I will take on the lion's share today to present to everybody and welcome us all into really, I hope, very clear understanding of what this next phase is going to look like. Many of you have selected, the majority have selected to come back this coming Monday, which is November 2nd. And we also do have a substantial portion, about a fourth or so, that are going to be staying at distance learning until December 18th. At that point, we will work as a district to see what the options will look like as we return from winter break. And for the purposes of this tonight, I'm going to focus much on our return to school, but there will still be a portion where I'll explain what the schedule is going to look like for students that are working at a distance, along with the students that are in the room as well. So the agenda for today, I've got this instructional model and the schedule to share with you. Parent agreement, I want to reinforce again, talk about our health screening process, and then also what the day in the life of the St. Helena Elementary School student looks like and our visitor protocols. Thank you. So as a general overview, this is now what the next phase for our daily in-person instruction is going to look like. That's the general overview for TK to 5th grade. And in a moment, I'm going to show you what that may look like with a little more detail at one of our grade level points as well. I really want to take this opportunity to highlight a couple things. One, our daily in-person learning timing, starting at 8:30, ending at school at 1:10, but at 3 o'clock to end our work time is the same timing that we now will have our distance learners follow as well. All of our teachers are working together and continuing to work collaboratively. They all have also now become distanced and in-school teachers. So there have been a few changes and decisions that we've made since mid-October. And I'm really excited about these because it really helps us respect and value the bonds that students have made with their teachers. And though we've been at a distance with each other as 13 to 16 person groups. All of them had been working at home already early and then joining Zoom sessions at 9:45. We will now switch that a bit. We've also been able to work out our timing for buses and whatnot so that our in-session time is closer to what we normally have. In a normal school year, we stagger our start times from school to school, and the elementary school generally, well, it starts at 8:35. For our distance and our daily in-person, however, we will be starting at between 8:30 to 8:45 to arrive, and school will start officially at 8:45. So you'll notice the 8:30 to 8:45 arrival time. I'll mention more what that looks like when I talk about the day in the life. Then there'll be core subject instruction. There'll be a recess break that will also include a balanced breakfast option for anyone that brings snack or breakfast with them or that gets it from the school. And I'll mention more about that. Core instruction. Then we'll have a working lunch. So we'll have lunch bags delivered if you've ordered them from the school or brought from home, and we'll be working, doing read alouds, doing some different activities while students get a chance to eat. Then they'll be leaving for dismissal at 1:10 if they're on campus. Teachers will walk them to the bus, and I'll talk about those details. As they return from home or to home or wherever they're going after school, they'll also have a work period that they can keep working until 3 o'clock as well. And to look a little bit with more detail what that will look like, and also the work that we've been doing as an instructional team, is how will we support what we're calling those in the room or roomers, and those who are joining us on Zoom in every classroom or Zoomers. So here's a sample grade level schedule that you can see. This part will show you what happens from arrival to the break period and the breakfast that will be served. So each schedule will vary slightly because we are going to be staggering our breaks so that we only have 3 groups out at once, 1 per grade level. As they come though, they'll be able to arrive, get settled in, they'll unpack materials if they're at the room, and if they're on Zoom, they'll be checking into Google Classroom like they have been. Every grade level has been doing the daily feelings check-in and being able to write down if students have any needs that the teachers need to support. They'll still do that, and teachers will still be reading that every day. And then there'll be a morning message that teachers will share with Roomers and Zoomers. We'll go into some social emotional learning with a morning meeting, and those on Zoom will join. So we'll be able to still have that that intact feeling and being able to present some students on our large screens, being able to show each other's faces and still be part of the group together at the classroom, and those that are away from the class as well. Students who are in Boys and Girls Club, those students, there are some that the Boys and Girls Club will still be able to support. And Mariana Martinez and some others will have reached out to you. You can definitely call Boys and Girls Club to see if there's some space for students. However, because Boys and Girls Club is supporting students from many different cohorts, they are going to only be having students that are distance learners in their groups. They will then keep very close, small numbered cohorts that will not mix with the other groups to keep the safety as a premium. So again, if you are with Boys and Girls Club, you'll be at a distance, and those students were selected just with a triage of selection criteria, generally starting with those that are essential workers' children, and then there are some other spaces for that as well. Boys and Girls Club will be starting from 8 to 5 o'clock, so they'll be able to accommodate our timing. I'm really excited about that. I love partnering with them as well. So then there'll be the reading instruction after the morning meeting, and then going into a movement and breakfast break. Another wonderful thing that our state has been able to provide is a free breakfast, balanced breakfast and lunch for any students that want it this year. There had been some funding to put that in place for a few months this year already, and we've been able to expand it as a state to support all students. Now, Angela Baxter, our amazing director, will also be reaching out. You've already received some information about free reduced lunch in your packets that went home. And we do encourage you, if you qualify for free reduced lunch, to still fill that paperwork out. In addition to lunch, that also helps qualify for some different transportation, limited costs for transportation, and some other types of services that you'll be able to have if you have qualified for free reduced lunch. Though that official paperwork isn't needed this year, it really will be helpful for perhaps some extra benefits for you. And it will make sure that next school year, for the first month of the year, you will already have rolled over into free reduced lunch and won't have to worry about any cost accruing or us having to cancel out any of those orders and such. So still fill out your paperwork, but all students will be able to tell their classroom teacher in the morning if they want a balanced breakfast that they'll have at the recess break time, or if they're going to want to have the school provided lunch as well. Our food is going to be kept hot and kept safe. And then at the period of time that's safe to deliver to students, we'll have them rolled over in carts for individual teachers. And I'll tell more about that when I talk about the day in the life as well. So then after recess to dismissal time, you'll see that we'll go into some math instruction. And again, the grade levels will vary a little bit on the timing of when they have reading support available and when math is going to happen. But this gives you the general sense that we'll have students working at Zoom and in the room on similar types of activities. Teachers will also be able to interact a bit with those in the Zoom, and we'll be able to talk to students about how to put chats in and how to put in some comments so that they'll still get some of those services, and that in the flow work time will be supported as well. Again, the lunch read aloud, it's a working lunch, so we'll be outside. Classroom teachers all have an area outside of their rooms. We'll have tents put out and tables. And at that point will be the only point of the day where a student would not have a mask on. They'll be distanced at least 6 feet apart and will be asked to stay really in place while they're eating just their own food, not sharing any food. We're going to work with our students so that they'll learn the new habits and the old habits they'll need to put aside, and new habits that we'll all need to follow to make sure that we stay safe and are able to stay at school as well. We'll have some preparation after that. Grade levels will do some work after lunch, and then they'll work to prepare to dismiss. All students and teachers will do that quickly because we'll have a really organized dismissal from school as well, which I'll mention in a moment too. Now, the teachers are going to dismiss students. They'll walk with their students, and then they'll have those that are not taking the bus leave to the grade level designated street. And then those that are going to the bus will come with their teachers so that we can help make sure that people stay distanced and safe as they're getting ready for their bus to pick up as well. Again, the bus will be from 1:10 to 1:20 for our loading. Then they'll leave on to some of the other schools, and students will travel home or to wherever they're going after school. And then they'll have a period of time that they can work on for their regular rest of the day, which would be from about 2 o'clock till 3 o'clock. At the end of the presentation, I'll have time for some questions that you'll be able to share in chat, but I'll go forward at this point to, again, another piece of our teamwork this year. We've all been really working since March to think about how we can keep St. Helena as safe as possible. And I know different families have different reasons for the degree of safety that you've been following, perhaps a degree of worry due to potential pre-existing conditions or some other things that would lead to having more serious symptoms potentially if COVID were to happen to yourself, or children, or other family members and people that you're close to. Now, unfortunately, this virus, it can hit people very unexpectedly seriously, regardless of pre-existing conditions. when I talk with students, I'm going to let them also realize that air is not just empty space. I like to think sometimes of air like water. It's molecules all floating. We've got air pressure on our bodies. We compensate for it. But that is why masks are so important. Anyone that may be asymptomatic, may have COVID, wearing the mask is going to help keep all of their breath and any particles that they may be, as many particles as possible, kept in with the mask itself. We want to make sure that those masks that students wear are either the 2-layer fabric masks or some of our hospital prep masks that you'll have potentially available at home, or we can supply at school as well. So again, people are keeping masks on because it keeps it out of the air and out of the environment that others could breathe or get into their own bodies as well. And as partners, we really need the day to start early before kids get to school. I know my kids have signed their agreement and they took it really seriously. So it's an oath, if you want to, if you haven't already, most of you have turned in the paperwork, but if you haven't already, you can have your student or your child put the right hand up and read it in a real serious way. As agreement for parents, all of our success increases when we work together as a community. We'll all keep each other safe. You as parents would agree to not send your student back to school if he or she has any signs of COVID-19 until at least 10 days have passed since the symptoms first appeared, and your child has been free of fever for at least 24 hours without the use of fever-reducing medication, and other symptoms have improved, for example, cough, shortness of breath, etc. And there's our sick little dragon there. We hopefully don't want to have many of those. We know that there are some common symptoms between COVID-19 and unfortunately other types of illnesses that kids do get at this time of the year and any time of the year, but we need to take them all seriously as if they may be COVID unless we know otherwise. So symptoms to look for: cough or shortness of breath, fever. And in this case, a fever is being considered at 100.4 or higher. Sore throat, headache, chills, runny nose, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. And I'll share what to do if we do have those symptoms. So on the first level, you'll keep your student at home or your child at home. If they develop those symptoms at school, we'll be having students stay in an isolation tent with a person assisting and making sure to supervise and keep them as comfortable as possible. We'll call guardians and make sure that someone can come as soon as possible to collect students. And then various scenarios play out here. This slide presentation will be put on our websites. You can access the chart to look at it more carefully with the link that's below as well. So COVID-19, now what? What do I do if I just found out? You can see in the red, that is like the most critical things, that you've tested positive perhaps for COVID-19. At that point, you would self-isolate for 10 days. Then you'll avoid infecting others in that way. And that's even if you don't develop more critical symptoms, you'll still be in isolation for 10 days. And then if you develop symptoms, then you can see below here. You may need to work from home until you have no fever for 24 hours, and the rest you can see there. We'll need to follow these guidelines really seriously. And what's very good, what I'm really happy about is that our district has added some personnel to help us with this. In addition to Barbara Dondero, who's an amazing district nurse, we also have hired a second nurse to help during this period of time. This will allow both of them to focus on 2 schools. Definitely they can support all the schools, but it will give more of that concrete nursing supervision, as well as screening if there are symptoms that need to be checked, and also contact tracing. Now that means if we know that someone has tested positive, or in the second column had close contact with somebody who's tested positive, or close contact with someone who is exposed to COVID or may have some of the symptoms, they're going to help triage these things. When we know that there's someone in the community who's just in the extended family who has COVID will be able to do what's called contact tracing, where we'll start the process of figuring out where a student, if there is a student or staff member who tested positive, which areas then and groups of people may have been exposed to that particular person if they've tested positive. Now, I won't belabor all the points, but exposure work is if you've been with 15 minutes of contact within 6 feet of a person. Now that can be, doesn't have to be contiguous minutes, so just any accrued 15 minutes or more of contact. Generally, that's going to mean our cohorts, for example. So cohorts of our classrooms, we purposely are limiting to 13 to 16 students. Ideally that, and we're working very hard to make sure that that group stays very isolated. So if there is an issue, and hopefully we will not have spread of the virus, but it would be contained in small pods as much as possible. Again, our contact tracers will make sure we've got the 2 nurses, like I mentioned, and we also have a trained staff member at every school site, in addition to district personnel that are helping with this, so that we can stay not only relying on our county, which also has some strong services, but we can bolster that with our own district support as well to be over and above. Again, we'll make sure that that it's really carefully followed to make sure that you're out for the appropriate amount of time if possible. Now, this can sometimes take a while. If a person has tested positive for COVID in a family, a person's quarantine for all the family members has to stop after those 10 days. So there may be a few weeks or so where someone might need to be away from school. And ideally, they won't even have the symptoms necessarily. So that's what I really love, that we've got our Zooming happening and distance learning that students have already participated in. So they've ideally got this down. If they have to be away, we'll make sure to welcome them with open arms into our Zoom sessions. They'll be with their same teacher and their same classmates as well. It's so important, our relationships, really anytime, but especially as children are developing. So we'll work to keep that really strong, and not, please let us know if there's any issues that are happening. We don't want that to make anyone feel bad or to have that be a point of any added issues or stress or negative interaction from peers. So please let us know. We're going to work really hard to do this well, though. And then a day in the life of a student. So we are all dragons. We're flying in from all different areas, or zooming in from different areas as well. And I'll take you through just from beginning to end. What I didn't put in here, they're getting checked if they're coming to school. They're getting checked by parents, doing their parent oath, following those directions, making sure that they have been screened for any potential symptoms. And then as they arrive, students will be dropped off, ride or walk to grade level assigned streets. Now, when classroom teachers are going to share this with students as well tomorrow, and then we'll have a video of it as well on Friday that students will see where exactly they're arriving. And I'm reinforcing any habits that they have and new habits that they'll need to develop. This is definitely a big change for some. Now, for any that are arriving by bus, same as always, the bus is going to arrive on Oak Avenue. But as they get off the bus, they'll need to be in a grade level area and go over to their grade level street in order to enter the campus. So 3rd graders, we're welcoming you all to the front of the school, to the main entrance street, which is Adams. So Adams Street will be our 3rd grade drop off. Now we've got some stickers that show where to go with arrows. There's little feet. We've got some rainbow stickers that are showing where where each grade level line meets for each teacher. And what is wonderful is that almost all of our classrooms have outside doors that students will be entering from. We've got 4 classrooms that are interior classrooms. That's Miss Pritchett, Miss Emery, Mr. Bass. Those are all going to be indoors, but they're going to be coming in through 3 different doors and will not be crossing paths in the hallway. Others in 3rd grade will know 2 classes. Miss Bond and Miss Pritchett's are going to go to the down closer to Oak Avenue, and the other 2 will enter around the other side by the playground, and we'll walk around to Miss Rodriguez and Miss Waters' class through the blacktop. But again, I'm going to show that. Teachers will also walk students through, and we'll have some photos of that to make it easier for kids to understand. We're also going to have folks out in the morning with maps showing 3rd graders where to go and where to find their classes, and to help it feel really comfortable and as supportive as possible. So 3rd graders, if they're on the bus, they will walk over to Adams Street, and any that are dropped off by family, or by guardians, that's also going to be the street for 3rd grade drop-off, will be Adams Street. If students walk, skate, bring a bike to school, same thing. They'll go in through the Adams Street, and then they'll follow the arrows showing which classroom they're going to go to. 4th graders are going to do the same on Oak Avenue, and we've got 3 of our Oak Avenue classrooms are going to be entering through the back. That's Miss Rinker, Perriott, and Vidal enter through the backs, and then Miss Buchanan's will come through what we call the breezeway right by the buses, and will go around to her front door. That's going to help people, again, limit crossing paths and just not get too tempted to kind of be magnetized to our friends, because I know that people have friends from lots of different classrooms. So we're working to be strategic, so we kind of limit that temptation. Then 5th graders, even if they live on Oak Avenue, for example, or on Adams Street, they're still going to need to go around to the back of the school to where Boys and Girls Club drop off and pickup is on Tainter Street. And all 5th graders are going to enter our campus through Tainter. They'll walk down some paths to go to the back doors for Moreno and Wright's class. They'll go through the blacktop down towards where Miss Tucker is teaching, and then go around into the classroom to go in for Mr. Bass, and a different door to go into Miss Emery's room. So after the first day or two, it will get to be quite easy for people, and we're going to be reminding people and really making sure to enforce the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade entry points so that we keep that routine healthy, positive, and that we're limiting our mixing of students even as they do ingress and egress from our school. Again, we'll have staff members assigned in the morning and at the entry-exit periods to direct students. Now, it's really important, please have students come between the window of 8:30 to 8:45 as opposed to earlier or later. That's our target goal, and we really have the support for everybody at that time. As students come in, they're going to see their stickers in front of their classroom that are spaced out about where to stand, like they've probably seen if any have gone to the grocery store or some. But if they have, they'll see these common kind of stickers that will be there. And it's important that they'll notice that they're keeping their space. And as the student in front of them perhaps is moving forward after the teacher has taken their temperature, given them their hand sanitizer, and has the student enter into their desks, the next student will come up to the front of the line where the teacher is going to be waiting at that open door with the thermometer through on the forehead, not touching, no contact thermometer, but we all have them in all of our classrooms, and we've got backup ones in the office if needed. Teachers are going to have that hand sanitizer and also some masks if anyone happens to forget theirs. And then as we move into the classroom, students are lining up, like I said, and then they'll put personal items in assigned spots, and then we'll put their backpacks on their chairs. Now, we used to have coat hooks in the outside of classrooms on Oak Avenue and indoors inside the main buildings. We're not going to use those. We're not going to have coat hook areas or any areas where things are too close to each other, but they will have bins, cubbies, and then their back of their chair to hang their items as well. Bathroom use, another change for students who used to try to do it just during recess and lunches. Now we're not going to be doing it during recess or the working lunch period, but we will have at least during the other periods, we'll be able to have one student leave a classroom if they need to go to bathroom at a time. and they'll have assigned bathrooms in our school, knowing where they're going to go and to come back quickly when they're done. Just go right to the bathroom, wash their hands for 20 seconds, come back in, use hand sanitizer as a double duty. And then if there's another student from that classroom, they can go at that point. Our bathrooms are being cleaned 3 times a day. Janitors, we have some great, our custodians have really excellent products for fogging with alcohol-based other kind of chemical products that are safe for schools. They're EPA approved, but also approved for helping to combat the COVID virus. And then we are allowed to have only 1 student per number of stalls that we have. And then there'll be some spots right outside the bathroom that students will stand on if they need to wait till a stall is open for them. I'll teach the students. We had a fun kind of video about how to wash your hands, make sure it's between the fingers, the thumbs, the fingertips, and we'll all get good at that again and follow all those guidelines and be ready to come back to class, use some hand sanitizer and sit back down. And again, as students leave class, they're going to be going through the same door. Doors will be opened at that point that they entered. So that will allow students to just be using the outside doors in 12 of our classrooms, and then just the few classrooms that are using the hallways will have an independent area that they can walk through as well to limit that close proximity and crossing of other people. We'll follow paths that teachers have talked about and students will be following to leave classrooms, to go to play areas, or to be leaving for the school day as well. And unlike in the past, sometimes students just leave when they're able to leave. Teachers, again, we're going to be walking in structured lines until teachers tell them that it's safe for the Tainter or the Adams Street children to leave onto their walking street. Now, late morning breakfast break and recess. So again, as I mentioned, we've got access to food this year, and that tally for a request for breakfast or request for lunch is going to happen every morning in the morning. Teachers will ask, then they're going to submit a form, enter some data for our service providers, our food service providers to look at. And those providers are as close to the timing that makes sense to be right by their morning breakfast time or their lunch time. Those are going to go into some wheeled carts with milk, and then the hot food or the cold food items, they'll be brought to classrooms and kids will be able to eat them at that time. Students will be eating outside at a distance from others. Now at break, classroom teachers are going to stay with their cohort. We have 3 areas of campus where we're going to have break. 2 on Carpi Field with division between the 2 sections, and 1 on the blacktop. We'll rotate the areas, but it will be 1 grade level on one half of Carpi, another grade level on the other, and the 3rd grade level, so 3rd, 4th, 5th, will be on the blacktop. We're going to start this year with 4th grade on the blacktop, or on November 2nd, that first week we'll have 4th grade on the blacktop, 3rd and 5th will be sharing Carpi Field, but in separate areas. And our break is going to happen between 9:45 to 11. We'll have 5 15-minute periods. So our first teacher, say it's Ms. Bond, would come out from 9:45 to 10, for example. And then the next, Ms. Camillus would come out from 10 to 10:15, so on for 15 minutes until the last group has finished. Then, as they come back in from their 15-minute break, students will sit down at their seats and they'll do seat work. For example, we'll either be silent reading, typing, reflex math, something that they're just sitting in their seats for. Because at that point, I'm going to have a different supervisor come just to the classroom door to make sure that students are staying seated and that they're working and staying focused while their classroom teacher steps out for a break. This is going to help students have that classroom teacher there only with their own cohort. So they're the ones that are helping at recess if there's issues, questions, and supporting kids playing games and staying at a distance. And then our support staff will be able to go between 5 classrooms not mixing with students, but making sure that they stay safe while the classroom teachers take a needed break as well. And then the working lunch dismissal. So during the day, they're going to have the lunch come to them if students had requested it in the morning. Students also may bring a robust snack from home for that first break, or a lunch to also eat while they're doing some work, if the 1:10 to 1:20 leaving campus from by 1:20 time is a little too late for some of them. So we'll build that in sometime after 11:45 on will be the period from 11:45 to 1:10 where classroom teachers are going to have their break structured. So they'll have students take out or get the lunch if it's been provided by the school. They'll be able to take off masks, do some listening to read aloud, do some work while they're eating, and then they'll go back in for the final work period. And then, as I mentioned, I won't go over that again, but it will be teachers leaving with the classroom and breaking out for third grade, going to Adams, Oak Avenue for fourth, and Tanger Street for fifth grade. Now, unlike in the past, we have sometimes had families come into our main office. The doors are usually open and we're welcoming. Sometimes families come in, maybe a student is late or tardy and they come in with parents. We are going to have only, as much as possible, unless someone is late, anyone coming to the main office door would only be adults. If people are dropping off students and there's no need for an office visit or a question to be asked or an appointment to be made, parents will drop off for third grade parents on Adams Street, and students are actually going to walk to one of the ends of the school building to come into the building. As I mentioned, by Ms. Vaughn's classes down by Oak Avenue, and then Ms. Rodriguez and Waters students will go in through a gate by our playground. The main office, however, will be open, and I'll show you some protocols. If it's for visitors or early pickup protocols, you'll always wear a mask while on campus, and our front office does have extra masks if needed. No visitors will be in the main office without an appointment or permission, but our front office door, though it will remain closed, will still have a phone number posted that you can call if you need to ask if there's an appointment available at that time or to make an appointment as well. If a guardian needs to pick up a student early, if at all possible, please email your classroom teacher and office staff, Ms. Leon and Ms. Rita Ortega Vidal. And that way we can have, and if you indicate the time that the student's needed, then we can have a student waiting there. And if not, sometimes things do happen. You would be calling that office number and we would then have an escort to bring the student out to be able to leave. Now, if a student is tardy, that will be the one time when students will come to the office. We'll do the temperature check there and then indicate to the classroom teacher that the student has been checked by our office staff as they go to school. But we'll work to not have tardies, I hope. Now, at this point, I am going to open that up for questions. And let's see, here we go. And I'm going to see if I can see that more easily.
Ms. Pearson, I can go ahead and facilitate the questions if you would like.
Thank you, Ms. Madrigal. I would love that. Great. And again, thanks. I don't know if I mentioned by name. We also have our assistant to the superintendent, Ms. Erica Madrigal, has been helping to facilitate. And I'd really appreciate if there are any questions that people have, you can share those in chat, and I'll look forward to answering some more of them. Thank you.
Carrie, please unmute your mic to ask your question.
Thank you so much. So Tanya, one, hello, and thank you for everything you're doing. But just a clarification question, fifth graders, is their homeroom teacher their originally assigned homeroom teacher?
Yes, it is. So, and I'll explain a little bit for the fifth grade. The fifth grade has been working with all 5 fifth grade teachers who have done all the 5 curricular areas. So they had a teacher for math, science, reading, writing, and social studies. Those teachers had been preparing and planning throughout this whole period. They're really well versed in all subjects, but at this point, they're going back into being a self-contained teacher of multiple subjects. So they're going to go to their homeroom teacher, the one that they've been checking in with from 9 to 9:30 generally, if they come in for that homeroom check-in. And the teachers, they may, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of some, still bouncing in through Zoom or some other ways to visit each other, but they're going to be taking on all of those subject areas by each classroom teacher.
Thank you.
Cecilia, please unmute your mic to ask your question.
Sí, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Quería hacer 2 preguntas. La primera es, mi hija va a tomar el bus para ir a la escuela en la mañana. Ella lo toma de aquí de la College Avenue. ¿Cuál es el horario en que ella tendría que estar esperando el bus, sabiendo que la escuela ya va a empezar un poquito tarde?
So the question was that her student is going to be taking the bus and asking what's the bus timing now that school is starting a little later. Our school is starting again at 8:45 instead of 8:15. So 8:45. There will be an edited bus schedule. So vamos a tener un horario diferente. Espero que vamos a mandarlos a todos los que están tomando el autobús. Ahora no tengo el horario exactamente en mi mente, pero lo vamos a dar estos días para que saben para la semana siguiente. And I said that we'll be sharing the bus schedule. I don't have it right now memorized, and it has been edited to allow for this new start time, and will be given to bus riders before next week so that you're able to prepare for that.
William, please unmute your mic so you may ask your question.
Hi. If our children ride their bikes to school, where will they be allowed to park their bicycles?
Thank you. So you'll be able to have them, they will still enter through their appropriate time or the area that they're going into, and then we'll have the bike racks set up so that they can access it from both sides and can stagger one side to the other with bikes. Over by the Boys and Girls Club, we have 1 rack and 2 different racks over by the blacktop that's more central to the rest of the school.
Amy Z, please unmute your mic so you may ask your question. Go ahead, Amy.
While we're waiting for Amy, I am going to mention that the updated bus schedule, thank you, Dr. Wilson, has shared with me that it is on the websites already. It's the updated schedule. So mientras estamos esperando para Amy, el horario del autobús sí está puesto en el sitio del distrito. Se puede encontrar ahí en la página. And sorry, I forgot we do have our translator, so thank you. It was just that question had come in Spanish. And we'll also be emailing, they'll be emailed again to parents as well. So you can check the website or expect an email with the bus routes. Thank you.
Amay, you may go ahead and unmute your mic and ask your question.
Hi, Tanya, thank you so much for this really helpful session. And I apologize, I had to step away from my computer for a second. So if this has already been asked, I apologize for the repetition. But my question is, so my child is doing distance learning. And my question is, will the kids who are Zooming in, will they be able to ask questions and participate live or in real time with their class? I understand it's going to be live stream. I just want to make sure that they're still able to participate.
One thing we're definitely doing, we're not going to set it up like a webinar like this where I can't see the chat feature as easily and we can't see folks as easily. We're still going to have it with the live Zooming, and they'll be chat enabled, so students can put in their chat when they have questions. And we're also encouraging teachers, they'll be able to notice, look at that, respond during the period, and also look at students that are around as well. On Wednesday from 2 to 2:40, there'll be an actual time for just the kids that are Zooming, if it seems like that's still something to go with in our schedule. But we have been talking about a staff and working. I'm sure that it's going to be absolutely during the periods. It may not be in the exact moment that they've been used to, because the teacher has currently been looking at the Zoom at that moment and being able to see the question as it comes in at that point. But we'll definitely be able to make sure that we're monitoring in live time and not having to wait, say, for like a couple days or way later in the day in order to get some questions answered.
So the questions are going to be written in rather than vocalized. They can't, people won't hear their voices.
I'm not sure. I more if the teacher's not available at that time, they'll be able to chat and type it into the chat so they don't lose the question. But I expect they'll still have some interactivity too with voices too.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it, Tanya.
Yep.
Carrie, you may unmute your mic to talk.
Thank you, Tanya. So if a child does need to leave school early or is being sent home and they rode their bikes, can they be sent home or can they leave on their bikes?
Yes, we'll still be able to use our normal release protocols. They absolutely can. Now, I'm going to say a caveat: if there is an illness or some reason that there's some symptoms that are concerning, we may have to work out something different and even save a bike till a later time for it to be picked up. But if that's the way that they do leave and have had that as their normal way of going, then we'll be able to do that as long as that's the agreement between the parent and the school. Or the
Thank
parent.
you.
I'll back up before this next question. That particular bus stop is 803 for the pickup there on College Avenue. Thank you for the help, district personnel. Other questions by chance, Ms. Madrigal?
It doesn't look like we have any more questions right now. Oh, I have one more, Principal Pearson, one more.
Great.
Amay, you may unmute your mic to ask your question. Amay?
There we go. Sorry, I was wanting to wait to see if someone else had a question before asking a second question. I just have a follow-up question, Tanya, to and I apologize if I don't understand the way it's been laid out clearly, but it looked like from the schedule that the kids who are Zooming in, are they going to also be a part of, like, when the kids who are there in person go outside, any activity that takes place in the tent that involves instruction, like you said, reading aloud, unless I misinterpreted the schedule? Will the Zoom kids be able to participate in those as well, or is it only for activities that are taking place inside the classroom?
Yeah, an activity such as a read aloud like that will be able to be done by Zoom as well. There may be some PE activities, for example, that is not going to be possible, but we'll be able to have, Coach Martin already has built a lot of robust activities during the springtime and has some of those already started this year. So it may be that the Zoomers will say, okay, hey, other kids are going to PE for this half an hour, 40 minutes. Please do these types of exercises. They'll have some links and stuff like that. And there may be also some work periods where teachers have decided that this is going to be the list of must-do work that kids will need to work on by themselves. Depending on 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, it may look a little different. We're really cognizant about the amount of screen time for younger versus older, and frankly, for everybody at our age, we want to limit it a bit, but we do want to make sure that they're participating as much, quite frequently, multiple times during the day, and that link is open so a student's able to come in and participate when they can.
Great. Thanks so much, Tanya.
I will also add on that the classroom teacher specifically will be able to reach out to those that are at a distance to give a little more nuanced description about how their particular class is going to be and the timing based on recess, reading intervention, PE, library services as well.
Carrie, you may unmute your mic to ask your question.
So not a question, more of a statement. I had made this statement on the RLS call as well. I ordered face shields. My kids will be wearing masks and face shields, but I have lots and lots. There was obviously a mistake in ordering. So if anyone would like some until they last, I have plenty if you're interested. They're only glasses, they're not the headbands. Just an offer.
Okay, that's really nice, Carrie. So kind of that would cover eyes and stuff to add an extra layer of protection in addition to the mask. That sounds great. If anyone didn't know, Ms. Carrie Groffen, we can also help take some orders and we can help facilitate that too. I'll let our office staff know. Thank you so much for that offer.
Lauren, you may unmute your mic to ask your question.
So my question is, if our kids are feeling sick or we have to keep them home or we go on a family trip, they're still able to Zoom in, right? So just because if they have to stay at home, and even though we didn't choose distance learning, they're still given the opportunity to be able to Zoom in and not miss out on 2 weeks that they're feeling ill, correct?
Yes, correct. And that, I think that's the absolute biggest pro that we have to our working to have every teacher with a Zoom camera and camera setup. We know as we think about scenarios, hopefully there won't be, but there will be some illness, COVID or non-COVID, that will need to have some quarantining and separation. And so even if a student has, well, obviously the students that are at a distance, we already know, and those that are Boys and Girls Club, they'll stay at a distance till December 18th. Others though that become ill or need to be quarantining and whatnot, they're gonna be able to be right in the mix along with the distance learners, and would have that readily, the schedule shared with all of you so that you've got that if needed as illnesses or issues come up as well. There may be a trip that would normally have an independent study contract, and perhaps that wouldn't end up lining up. I think that is a different scenario, so I lump them both together. If there's illnesses and people are at home, they absolutely will be able to Zoom in. It may be, however, that with the distance learning, that would be more like a trip that happens. We'll go with the regular independent contract. And I actually mentioned that with staff because we just don't want necessarily to have a student only there for they're on a trip, but it might have a really non-academic time frame. So we wouldn't want someone just there for certain tiny parts of the day and then off with family for other types of events. But if they're able to have that time frame of a day, then they're definitely able to come back into the structure of the distance program, regardless of what they selected at this point. And we'll see if there are any more questions. I feel this excitement of it, feeling like it's the first day of school, although I'll say it's the first day of our second phase of the school. And we'll look forward to maintaining this health and safety. We've got some holidays coming up. We've got Halloween coming up. We've got Thanksgiving in the mix here. Please, I implore you to think about the safety of our whole entire community. It may well be that some students have been in the habit of being with a few friends here or there, but we're about to step back on campus with maybe 200 people. We're being very careful to make sure that we stay in small groups and we're keeping people distanced and adhering to safety protocols. I know personally we're working on an Easter egg hunt type Halloween celebration here and different types of temptation to do things that typically have brought us into close contact are the types of things that are making folks a little bit worried and hoping that we're all going to work together as a team to keep people distance and to be creative, still fun and playful, but not have the type of group organization and grouping that has sometimes happened or usually happens with, you know, trick-or-treating and other types of things. So please do follow. There have been some really great guidelines that have been put out by the City of St. Helena and others. Look towards that, what you can do to keep really safe, and let's work together to stay safe and excited to come back to school and do it in a way that we're all going to work cooperatively, so that once we do come back into groupings that will be extended for hours every day, we're going to keep ourselves as healthy as possible as a community. We're not going to have the same red carpet, but we're going to have music out there for kids to listen to. We'll look to hopefully having some bubble machines. We're going to be really careful about not doing shared equipment right now, and we'll slowly fold in some games and different activities to keep school fun and exciting, even though it's very interesting and odd times that we're in.
Ms. Pearson, Victoria has the question.
Okay, thank you.
Please unmute your mic and ask your question, Victoria.
Hi, I need to know how many classroom.
It's difficult to hear, Victoria. Can you repeat that, please?
Can you hear me?
Now I can. I didn't hear the question though. Can you repeat that?
Sí. ¿Cuántos alumnos va a haber por clase?
Ok, so cada clase va a tener hasta 13 hasta 16, pero hay muchos hay algunos que van a estar en distancia, así que no más que 16. So how many students are in each class? The classes are 13 to 16 students. None will be more than 16, and a class will only have 16 if everybody has opted to come back to school. There are different ranging from 2 to 7, depending on the classrooms. So no classroom will be more than 16 students, which is less than we normally have in a typical school year. That is because at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we added a 5th teacher for 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and we're still in those small groups that we've been able to afford by having that 5th teacher, and will not be having more than that number, which allows us to stay at 6 feet or farther in our classrooms as well.
Ms. Pearson, it doesn't look like we have any more questions.
Excellent. That brings us to perfect timing too. Please, I'm willing to answer any other ones that come up. This will also, the recording that's been live streamed will be posted, as well as the slide presentation. Teachers will be sharing it with your own children and also sharing a little welcome video, and we'll look forward to having a great next phase to our return to school sites. Thank you so much. Thank you, staff that came to join at a distance and those that helped me with answer some questions here. Thank you, Ms. Madrigal, and to our interpreters as well.